Hello students, and welcome to part 9 of our video series. So last week we talked about reflection and refraction, and you got a basic understanding of some of the fundamental properties of light and what light is. So this week we're going to be moving on to simple optical systems. We're going to be talking about thin lenses, which is very closely related to what we're going to be doing next week, where we're going to be talking about concave mirrors, or just mirrors in general. So for starters, as a reminder, right, visible light, everything that we see with our eyes is because of visible light. So basically what happens is, right, like when you have an object, light will hit that object, and some of the light, this is why we have different colors, will be reflected off that object, and that's how we're able to see the world. So now we want to know how will light behave when it goes through a lens, all right? So you think about some of the things that we use lenses for. We use them for microscopes, telescopes, like sometimes like a magnifying glass. It's a convex lens or concave lens, and you can magnify things and things like that. So it's really interesting to know how light will travel through a lens, right? So one of the ways that we describe how light travels through a lens is with a ray diagram, right? So we have an object here, which could be a person or something, and how we draw the light rays in these ray diagrams is always at the top of the object, okay? And then we need to know some of the basic names of the rays, and this is going to be important for your quiz. So you can have a ray like this, which is known as your parallel ray. It's labeled here 1, and the parallel ray starts from the top and goes straight until you hit your lens, right? And then it runs through the focal point until it converges to your image. This is one ray. Another ray that you could have is known as the focal ray, all right? The focal ray starts at the top of the object and it intersects the focal length, right? And then once it hits the mirror or the lens, it runs parallel until the image is formed, okay? And then the last ray, which I call like the main ray, it also starts at the top of the object and it goes right through the center of your lens, all right? And this is known as the chief ray. So these are the 3 main rays you will see in a ray diagram. Now, some ray diagrams, they might not have all 3 rays, right? You might see 2 rays, like typically you're always going to see the chief ray, but you might see the chief ray, the focal ray, or the chief ray and the parallel ray in some ray diagrams. But this is the basic 3 rays that we use when we're drawing ray diagrams. And it's very important to know the definitions of all 3, especially when it comes to your quiz, right? So keep this in mind, learn the definitions, because we're going to be using these ray diagrams to understand how does light travel through a mirror, okay? Or a mirror, a lens, and next week's lab we're going to be looking at mirrors too. We're going to use ray diagrams as well. But for this case, this is a lens on a mirror. So first, we're going to start looking at some of the basic definitions that we're going to be using, right? Whether we have a real image or a virtual image, right? And what does that mean? So what is a real image? Well, the real image means that the light goes through the lens, right? And it goes from the single source through the lens to form a single point in space. So you're going to see a real image on the other side of the lens, right? This makes sense. The light is coming from here, and the image is formed over here, so the image is real. So this is a definition of a real image. Now, a virtual image is slightly different when it comes to a lens optical system. A virtual image is basically going to be formed on the same side of the lens that it's going through, right? So you could look at these diagrams here, and the image is actually formed right here, right? When it's going, it comes back and it's formed, okay? So your image height will be formed on the same side. Over here, your H prime for a real image is formed on the other side of the lens. So that's the main differences between a real image and a virtual image. A virtual image forms on the same side as your object, whereas a real image forms on the other side of the lens. Okay, So the physics that's driving these things is given right here by the thin lens equation, right? Whereas it's going to be 1 over p plus 1 over q is equal to 1 over f. All right, so what is these variables? Well, p is going to be the distance from the object to the center of the lens. So you can see it right here. Distance from the object to the center of the lens. Q is going to be the distance from the location to the image formed on the center of the lens, right? Here we have a real image, so here's your Q value. And then F is going to be the focal length, also called the focus length of your mirror. So this is the equation that we're going to be using this week. So you could solve, if you know 1 over P and 1 over Q, you could solve for your focal lengths, right? So I'll let you guys solve this equation. It's very simple, but you could solve for any of these. So if you have Q and P, then you could get F. If you have F and Q, then you could get P. It's very simple to work with algebraically, but you could rearrange this equation and get your focal length and your distances and stuff if they ask you to calculate that. But this is a driving equation. Another interesting thing to know is when we have an optical system is the magnification, right? Is it getting larger or is it getting smaller? And this depends on basically the object's height, right? So it's going to be your image, h prime, divided by the height of your original object. Will give you a magnification. You could also, it's also equal to this too. It's also equal to your negative q divided by p, where again q is the distance from the image formed from the center, and then p is the distance from the object to the center of the lens. So well, the simulation is going to draw these ray diagrams for you, but when you're looking at these, it's always good to look at your ray diagrams so you understand what's going on, right? So if you have a ray diagram, you could easily see if you have a real image or a virtual image, right? So looking at this, you know that the object is on the opposite side of the lens, so that means it's real. If it's on the same, like right here, this is your h prime, then it's virtual, right? And here's your h prime here, it's virtual. So that's the main thing that we're going to be doing this week, is we're going to be looking at these simple optical systems. And then they're going to ask you to plot some things, and like they're going to ask you to plot 1 over p and things like that, and make some very simple data analysis from your graphs like we've done in previous labs. They're going to ask you things: what happens when your object distance gets larger, or so forth? What type of behavior are you going to experience? You've seen those types of questions in earlier labs, so I'm fairly certain y'all guys could answer them well. But if you do have questions, you can always send me an email, and I'll be more than happy to help, or come by during office hours. So this week's lab, it's another very straightforward lab. Mathematically, I don't anticipate you're going to run into too many problems. Again, this is a very simple algebraic expression to solve if you need to solve it. And it's very well known, so it's not like Kirchhoff's rules or anything like that. And then, again, like this is another simple expression to solve as well. So again, let me know if you have any questions, and I'll be happy to help.